An increase in the number of African Americans holding elective or political office at the state and especially local government levels, mayors, councilors, etc. Very few blacks hold elected or appointed political office at the federal level, in the U.S. Congress, Senate or White House. An increase in the number of African Americans holding middle-class jobs. Middle-class blacks are a tiny percentage of the overall black population of 39 million. It is estimated that there are about 1.3 million blacks within the middle class. Asian Americans make up about 10 million people. Asian Americans are the fastest growing ethnic minority group in the U.S. The first wave came from middle and upper class backgrounds and brought with them capital to invest. The 1980 wave came from low socioeconomic backgrounds and were of mixed race. Similarly, recent waves of Asian immigrants from 1960 onward are highly skilled and educated compared to those who came to the U.S. in the 1800s, mainly Chinese and later. Native Americans have suffered massive population transfers and forced relocations to reservations where most of them live today. The depopulation of Native Americans was due to a combination of A. Genocide, B. New diseases introduced by the white immigrants that they had no natural immunity to, and 4 factors facilitating or hindering minority integration into mainstream society. Factor number 1, social distance, which is the cultural and physical similarity or difference of the minority group from the dominant WASP group. Factor number 2, the mode of entry into the American society and economy. Whether the minority group came voluntarily or involuntarily into the American society, and whether it provided free labor or forced, slave, labor have profound implications for the minority group and their degree of assimilation to American society. Factor number 3, the social origins or class background of the minority immigrants. Within the Hispanic community, the first wave of Cuban Americans 1959 to 1960 has been very successful in economic and political terms compared to those who arrived in 1980. Factor number 4, the health of the U.S. economy. How the dominant group reacts to or treats the racial minority groups varies with the health of the economy. The media invented myth of Asians as a model minority in the 1980s does not apply to all Asian Americans. The Jim Crow laws were state and local laws enforcing racial segregation in the southern United States. Broad definition of family involves 2 or more people who are related by blood, marriage, or adoption and share a common or single household. According to the 2000 U.S. Census report, 23.5% or about 24% of households or families are nuclear or intact, while nearly 77% are other forms of family structure, to be considered later. Serial monogamy results from the high divorce rate and a growing number of people who marry more than once. Serial monogamy allows spouses to maintain a commitment to marriage and to at least one spouse at a time. Reconstructed families are families consisting of children from both spouses' previous marriages. Cohabitation or living together before or instead of marriage. This is a relatively common type of marriage arrangement, particularly among young adults or college students. Communal living where members may share both sexual relations and the task of raising children. The economic system consists of norms, rules, and activities that regulate production, distribution and the use or consumption of goods and services in society. Economic activity is an important component of human culture and society. For example, economic activity such as work helps individuals to define their identities and to determine their social or class position in society. Deindustrialization, which means the relocation of manufacturing activity in third world countries, such as Mexico, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. because of inexpensive labor. The increased use of temporary employees, temps, and part-timers is on the increase. Employers prefer temps and part-timers because they are highly skilled employees who are inexpensive to hire since they do not have benefits or health insurance. The modern American economy is dominated by large corporations. America's Fortune 500, i.e., the largest 500 commercial and industrial corporations, possess and exert enormous political and economic power in the U.S. and abroad. The U.S. corporate structure tends to separate ownership of the company from its control. Some of the major corporations such as IBM, ExxonMobil, General Motors, and Microsoft have budgets larger than those of most countries in the third world where they operate. There are 3 major explanations for this dramatic increase. First, an increase in part-time employment and the use of temporary employees or temps by companies to reduce the cost of labor and increase efficiency and profitability. Second, the increasing number of women choosing to work outside the home, while continuing to raise children. Finally, the cost of living has forced both spouses to work in order to adequately meet their financial obligations needs. According to Max Weber, there are two types of power: A. Legitimate power, or authority, and B. Coercive power, the use of force or repression or illegitimate power. Three major reasons account for low voter turnout in U.S. national elections, especially the U.S. presidential general elections. The first reason is voter apathy. Most American voters believe correctly or incorrectly that their vote does not count or that they cannot make a difference. The second reason is that the two major political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, or the Grand Old Party or GOP, represent a coalition of interest groups rather than major groups in society on the basis of class or political ideology, different from Western Europe and Scandinavian countries where politics revolves around class and ideology. Finally, the third reason for voter apathy is voluntary registration together with bureaucratic hurdles involved, such as state-provided or approved IDs. The power elite model is associated with C. Wright Mills, author of Sociological Imagination and the Promise. According to Mills, power in the U.S. is concentrated or centralized in the hands of a power elite. In other words, the majority of Americans have little or no power. The legal rational bureaucratic authority, which he saw as the most efficient because it is impersonal, i.e., behavior and action are guided by written rules and regulations. This type of authority is used in modern businesses, bureaucratic organizations and corporations, and governments. There are three types of government based on the relationship between rulers and ruled. These are democratic government. The relationship between the rulers and the ruled is based on consent of the ruled or citizens. Authoritarian government. Such governments tend to be right-wing or fascist regimes, e.g., Chile under Pinochet, Nazi Germany, or Italy under Mussolini. Totalitarian government. Totalitarian governments tend to be left-wing governments or communist regimes, e.g., North Korea, or theocracies, e.g., Iran under the Ayatollah. Education is the formal and structured transmission of specialized knowledge, skills and values required in society and the job market. Mass model of education. The mass model of the American education system is based on the assumption or belief that public education benefits the entire society, especially in providing skills, knowledge and citizen participation in the democratic process. The elite model of education. The elite model of education is common throughout continental Europe, Japan, Asia, Latin America, Africa and the Middle East. Social class or class background. A strong link exists between social class and educational achievement. As a result of the local control of the schools and the curriculum, there are two major consequences. A. The curriculum content tends to reflect local needs and values, making the standardization of the curriculum beyond the school district or the state difficult to achieve or accomplish. B. Major differences exist in educational expenditures among communities or school districts, leading to unequal educational opportunities even among public schools in the same school district. Compared to Japan, for example, the United States is aging less rapidly. In 2010, about 13% of the U.S. population of 312 million was 65 and older. In contrast, Japan, with about 120 million people, had 24% who were 65 and older. The social construction of aging, the way the elderly are treated in any society, is a function of social construction based on the society's cultural values and practices that inform how the elderly are perceived. In most societies where the elderly tend to live longer lives, three factors appear to explain this longevity. 1. Diet consisting mainly of little meat and much fresh fruit, vegetables, garlic, goat cheese, cornmeal, buttermilk and wine. 2. Lifelong physical activity. They may slow down after age 80, but even after the age of 100, they still work about 4 hours a day. 3. A highly developed sense of community that lies at the heart of the people's culture. Among the Abkhazians, an agricultural people who live in the former Soviet Union Republic of Georgia, old age does not lead to a sudden separation between what they were, when young, and what they are, in old age. Industrialization has helped to prolong life expectancies of people, especially those in the United States and other industrialized countries. The term graying of America refers to the growing percentage of older people 65 and older in the U.S. population. Three major theoretical perspectives of aging. 1. The symbolic interactionist perspective. 2. The functionalist perspective. 3. The conflict perspective. The symbolic interactionist perspective. According to this perspective, culture signals to people that they are old. However, ideas about the elderly in industrialized countries such as the US are changing. In addition, the mass media and popular culture influence people's perceptions of aging. The mass media, as a powerful source of symbols, tends to influence people's perception of the elderly. The more television that people watch, the more they perceive the elderly in negative terms, because there are fewer on TV, especially used in advertising and selling products to younger and middle-aged people. However, with the growing numbers of the elderly combined with their affluence and the political clout of art, they now have considerable economic and political power in the U.S.